Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. If your finances have ever felt like, just one giant, overwhelming ball of chaos, you are in exactly the right place. Today, I'm putting on my calm, pragmatic financial advisor hat. No judgment, just solutions. Our sole mission? To help you build an absolutely rock-solid life protection plan. We're going to draw on some brilliant concepts from Steve Green's book, Financial Health in the 30 Steps, from debt chaos to a balanced budget, to systematically construct your stability literally from the ground up. Okay, let's dive into this and see how we can take back control. So here is our agenda for today. First, building your financial floor. Then, we'll look at the psychology of financial safety, essential versus optional expenses, calculating your financial margin, your emergency survival blueprint, and finally, making one structural improvement today. All right, section 1, building your financial floor. Before we even think about crunching a single number, I really want you to ask yourself a crucial question. What is your financial oxygen level? Seriously, imagine you're piloting an airplane. We are not talking about your ideal cruising altitude where they're, serving champagne in first class. No, we're talking about the absolute minimum altitude required to just keep your plane from crashing into the ground. And that brings us to the core concept of our analysis, the minimum survival budget. So what is this? It's simply the minimum monthly amount you need to keep your life functioning safely. It covers only your absolute essential needs to prevent a financial freefall. Now listen closely here, because this is super important. This is a diagnostic tool, not your forever lifestyle. It's not your dream budget, and it's definitely not a perfectly optimized savings plan. This is your floor. It's your financial oxygen that just prevents the freefall. Moving to section 2, the psychology of financial safety. Safety before growth. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the clear distinction we've got to make. A survival budget, that is your psychological safety net for emergencies. Cost optimization, on the other hand, is the later process of perfecting your lifestyle and building that long-term wealth. Today, we are only focusing on the safety net. People so often fall into the trap of wanting to perfectly optimize every single penny from day one. We actually need to say no to that impulse and build the net first. Here's the thing. We are biologically wired to seek safety. When you feel financially insecure, your brain just flips into this threat mode. And that drastically narrows your thinking, it increases your cognitive load, and honestly, it pushes you toward impulsive, short-term decisions. Because uncertainty creates anxiety, bringing in clarity naturally reduces it. Establishing a financial floor literally turns off that catastrophic threat mode in your brain. Just consider this incredibly powerful insight from someone who recently went through this exact process. They said, seeing the number was scary, but it was a clear scary, not a foggy one. Wow. Defining your own minimum might cause some initial resistance, sure, but a clear problem is a solvable problem. When we're stuck in the financial fog, we're totally paralyzed. But knowing your exact minimum, even if the number feels daunting at first, instantly restores your sense of agency. All right, section 3, essential versus optional, defining our true needs. Let's look at some concrete examples for this triage phase. Essential expenses are what keep a roof over your head, the power on, basic food on the table, and cover your minimum debt obligations so you stay legally compliant. That's it, the whole shebang. Everything else, dining out, making extra debt payments beyond the minimum, all your streaming services, those become totally optional in an emergency phase. Just remember the golden rule of a crisis. Collection agencies can't evict you, but your landlords certainly can. So how do we actually sort this out? Well, it's a highly logical step-by-step process. First, grab a snapshot of your recent expenses. Then look at every single category and ask yourself, if my income suddenly dropped to zero, is this absolutely required for my survival or to keep me working? Third, mark each item clearly as either essential or optional. Finally, total up only the essential items. That final number, that is your raw, unbreakable floor. Let's jump to section 4. Calculating your financial margin, comparing your floor to your income. Now we are entering a totally shame-free zone to evaluate your actual stability by calculating your financial margin. Margin is, quite simply, the gap between what you earn as your baseline income and what you absolutely must spend to survive. It's a straightforward mathematical equation, but it gives us our absolute most vital diagnostic metric. So, when you subtract those survival expenses from your income, you're going to land in one of 3 scenarios. A positive margin? That's your shock absorber. It gives you flexibility and massively drops your stress. A break-even margin means you are right on the edge. It's a fragile situation where one unexpected bill creates chaos. But hey, it tells you exactly where you stand. And a negative margin, well, that just means your current baseline income isn't covering the absolute basics, which simply means an action plan is required immediately. So, the crucial point is, if your margin is negative, do not panic. Seriously, we have shame-free solutions ready to go. You can build an action plan that includes negotiating bills with service providers, seeking out assistance programs, looking for ways to reduce housing costs, maybe refinancing debt to lower those monthly burdens, or just making temporary strict spending cuts. I really want to emphasize this with everything I have. A negative margin is a math problem. Actually, scratch that. It's only a math problem. It is not a moral problem. So many people internalize financial struggles as this deep, personal failure, assuming they're just reckless spenders. But often, the diagnostic data simply tells us that living costs are just too high relative to income. Your floor answers the totally unemotional question of whether you need to optimize your outflows or drastically expand your inflows. All right, Section 5, your emergency survival blueprint, designing the floor version. With all that data in hand, it is time to build your physical floor blueprint. You're going to total your essentials in one place, identify exactly which optional cuts you'll make temporarily, and keep this entirely written down as an emergency fallback plan. Now, why must it be written? Because during a crisis, our brains panic. We literally lose the ability to guess and make rational decisions on the fly. By doing this, you are effectively writing an instruction manual for your future self. And here's a fun little challenge with a massive psychological payoff. Give your floor a name. Don't just call it a budget. What is the name of your floor? Call it the safety net plan or, I don't know, Operation Keep the Lights On. Creatively naming your budget reclaims psychological control. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstance and you become a strategist. It turns sheer survival into an actionable, focused mission. Finally, Section 6. One structural improvement today. Let's strengthen your floor. I want to challenge you to make just one minor structural change to strengthen your baseline stability right now, today. Switch to a cheaper phone plan, call your insurance agent for a quick policy review to lower your premiums, or maybe adjust your tax withholding. Choose just one incredibly simple, bite-sized action that takes, maybe 10 minutes. It might seem totally insignificant, but just wait until you see the magic of doing this. And this brilliantly illustrates the power of these tiny actions. Imagine you make one phone call and cut your internet or phone bill by just $40 a month. That tiny, seemingly boring little tweak compounds to $480 over a single year. That is almost $500 automatically injected into your foundation year after year, just from 10 minutes of structural reinforcement today. Crazy, right? It really all comes back to this core philosophy. Stability precedes progress. You absolutely must build the ground before you can build the ceiling. You can't sustainably invest in the stock market or dream of buying a second house if you aren't completely certain that your monthly foundation is made of concrete rather than sand. But once you establish that minimum, everything else you build on top of it will actually hold. So what does this all mean? Are you ready to clear the fog and design your unbreakable financial foundation today? We've stripped away the noise, we've looked at the undeniable math, and built a psychological framework for safety. Your minimum survival budget isn't a restriction. It is literally the most empowering armor you can wear. So grab a piece of paper, write your numbers, and map out your own survival blueprint. You've got this.